you know, the thing about it is, these were condemned veterans who were actually also patriots because they had no problem fighting for the same military who was getting ready to execute them.
Well, sure. But I think, and again, a lot of what people are concerned with around here right now is they're being all these war-age foreign people here that we really don't know what their intent is. Is it spying? Is it they're here? And again, we didn't know that what was going on as far as getting them here. I talked to Gary James, who's advertising in the magazine for running for the state senate position, and he had said that they found out there was like 500,000 were flown in. I mean, this has been going on for so long, and it's just now really coming to light. Not just the open border, but I mean the whole. They're flying them in. I mean, literally just flying them in. But I mean, I don't know. In general, I think that what they do up there in the Richmond, North Richmond, we don't know half the time. But a lot of it is exposed. People just don't pay attention. They got this attached to this bill, so they can get this through, they can get that. And sure. But this was never announced. This was never. Oh, we're going to fund this bill. But oh, by the way, we're going to spend $100 million flying foreigners into this country that are undocumented and not, and they were going to give them all this. I don't ever remember seeing that. Being transparent. That's one of the biggest problems with we don't have the transparency when they're allowing them to attach this to that and then
that's right.
This, and they bury stuff, that bacon or whatever they call
it. Pork belly spending,
yeah. And the thing is, this is probably one of the most serious threats that I've ever. I mean, anything else you can feel like you can maybe live through, and you can maybe get through this, and you can maybe get through that, or the spending numbers are arbitrary, as long as they're not going to raise the FICA. But this is a direct threat. This is in your street. This is in your neighborhood, and we're powerless to stop it. I don't get it. How do we stop it? I mean, how do you make it stop? Because according to Gary, and I did do some follow-up reading, and DeSantis said he wasn't even aware. They didn't even tell the governor, supposedly. But dude, it's out of control. The best thing you can do is go somewhere else, I think.
Well, I think nobody's going to understand how serious things are until we see what they showed on Red Dawn, when the kids are sitting in the classroom and all of a sudden parachutes start landing because we've just been invaded.
Well, I mean, they're already here, so they really don't have to invade, or unless they do come in with a force, like somebody like China would be the only one that probably could, that has enough people. And it's not something that I would ever want to see happen because a lot of our friends, neighbors, and relatives, and I have aunts, uncles, we all have extended families that would never be able to defend themselves against something like that. And people joke, or they'll be like, well, how bad could it be? If they took, no, you don't have a clue, man. I mean, how bad it could be under communism, and or I don't know. Like I said, there's some people. You got to be able to do some research just to delineate between fact and fiction out there. But the way that things are being told about the life over there with the social scores, and you can't shop at this store, you can't ride the bus, all your jaywalking, we're going to take your. I mean, it's 100% socialism. And I don't know that anybody in this country, even if they think they would like to live under socialism, would actually like to live under socialism. Because social services is not socialism. People think, oh well, government, medical health care, everyone should have it. Okay, that's a social service. That's not socialism. Socialism being that, very close to communism, but really to the point where the government tells you what you can and can't do and can't have. We already have enough of that going on, I feel like, on this planet. It blows my mind that somewhere, depending on where you're born, and again, depending on what you believe in, spiritually, religiously, otherwise, or whatever, but when we're born and we come into this world and we take our first breath, we're captive somewhere. I mean, if you're born in China, if you're, I guess, lucky enough, because I don't think they'd even let them have, but they didn't want to have girls or boys, I can't remember. But I mean, you basically screwed for the time you get here.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt, and people don't understand. All you got to do is do a little research, a little study on communism, and you very quickly find out you got leaders like Mao Zedong. Um, that was going all the way back to when Nixon and Kissinger were in office. Mao Zedong, underneath his regime, they murdered over 80 million people.
Hmm.
And then you have Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
Under him, 60 million people. And then you get down to Hitler. Well, Hitler was under 20 million. Now, that's still a bad number, but it's no 80 million. Then you've got Pol Pot. Pol Pot
That
was.
is, if you believe that what they told you, which we already know that 90% of history books are lies, that they were rewritten to further the agenda of the elite. And, you know, I didn't learn until this year that what the true fight over Hitler was. The Germany. It wasn't about Germany taking over as a superpower. It was about them fighting for the right to be a power in the region, and they were fighting who? The bankers. They were fighting the bankers, you know, and I didn't know that. None of that ever came to light, you know, for us. They didn't teach us that school that way. I didn't know, you know, and something else I had learned, again, some research goes a long way, but Saddam Hussein was the same thing. What he said was, I'm not going to participate in your monetary system. I'm tired of, you know, these other countries, the bankers having all the wealth, and we're not going to participate. So we're going to create our own currency and our own economic. And guess what? Next thing you know, the superpowers or the powers that be on this globe have us. You know, they're playing army with real army. They're playing risk with real people in their lives. So you just have whole countries go over and destroy countries. They never found a WMD. There was not ever given even a reason when they weren't no WMDs why we ever wanted it. Well, it turns out, well, guess what? He created his own monetary system and told the central bank, F you. Same thing Germany did. Germany did the same thing against France and against England. So we're done. We're not playing. We're gonna do our own, you know, whatever. And you know, I find it really weird. It always comes back to that central bank and the elitists that run the world are trying. And I think that's where we're at now. I think that they figured out, and they even said, we don't want to try America. There's not, you can't use a country at that time to come at us. There's not a country that was big enough to take it with the superpower military that we had and have had generally. Okay, now maybe not the number of manpower, but the technology and the weaponry. But they said we can systematically destroy their country, and they are very patient people, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm afraid that's where we're at now. At some point, I suppose you have to send in food, you know, and it seems to me like they've already got them here.
Oh, they're working on it.
Now, if that was the intent of, you know, the administration, I don't know, or was it just by registered voters that, you know, to have it, you know, or what? But you just don't really know. Problem is they're here, and if the current Republican candidate, you know, actually gets elected without getting killed first, and he talks about deportation and all that. I mean, the list when that happened yesterday or yesterday before, the list is as long as the southern border. I mean, because you got 8 million people who don't want to get thrown out, you know, or deported, but he says he, I don't know how you get your opportunity. Like I say, it's the same way you brought them in. Some point it's going to cost us much, though, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that if that does happen, if the clubs would come together and unify, you have a tremendous force there.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt.
But the biggest thing I think is going to be in any factor. You've got people that are organized in major cities too, that are, you know, a street gang or gangsters, you know, the Bloods, the Latin, all these, and they're MS-13, they're all very organized too. But see how organized they are when there's no communication and no power. But yet the people who were brought here to control or put on a blue helmet or whatever, they got communication. And but that communication breakdown goes a long way. You can't organize.
Oh, that's right.
It would be interesting. Much easier to fight neighborhoods to neighborhood than it is to fight an assembly of people, but you can't assemble, you can't communicate with each other. But yet they can assemble their squadrons or their platoon because they have the communication.
That's right.
It would just be a mess, and it would be. I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that'd be really bad. They have to go back to communicating by ham radio.
Well, the thing is, nobody has any ham radios. I mean, there are guys, there are networks, and we don't know who they are.
Yeah,
But I think you have to be FCC regulated.
you do
So if
now.
you do,
Yeah.
then they just kill that band. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
they don't work either.
Yeah.
But somehow we all found each other to ride bikes.
Mhm.
And in high school, somehow we all knew what we were. Like I said, I went to school on Friday just to figure out what we were doing for the social for the weekend. Otherwise, I'd skip it Friday. But
Yeah.
somehow we all met up in town, or we all made it, you know. And
Mhm.
but we're used to that. The younger generation have never come up that way. And so
Oh
how
no.
fast time flies, and then how quickly you just don't realize that adults, the young adults now, good lord, man, they're. I mean,
Mhm.
how my kids are 30. It's like.
Yes. You get to feeling old pretty quick.
But like I said, I hope that that doesn't happen. But I mean, the unification in the club would be a tremendously powerful thing.
Mhm.
And at times they do unify. They'll have an
Mhm.
agreement or they'll have a whatever with each other. But in
Mhm.
the end, they're kind of also taught that their patch is best, which is okay to an
Mhm.
extent. It is. I mean, it's
Mhm.
pride in your club, pride in your
Mhm.
colors. But I think that being taught to automatically hate other teams. I get it. Trust me. Like I said, we had a club brother who had allegedly gotten to a shootout 30 years ago up north at the Michigan club that we're friends with. I was friends with them down here, but these aren't the same guys. These guys are like 40. I mean, they
Mhm.
weren't even born. Or they were like 10. They were kids. But then one guy wouldn't even go to their clubhouse. And even
Mhm.
though these aren't even the same people, I get it. I mean,
Mhm.
I suppose there are I don't know now. I mean, is it bad now? I know that after World War II, there were a lot of people who hated Japanese people or Asians.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know if that's still the case when it comes to like the newer fighters that have come back from Afghanistan or
Mhm.
whatever. I don't think they do. I know some multiple combat veterans that don't
Mhm.
necessarily hate the guy that owns the 7-Eleven because they went over
Mhm.
there and fought.
Mhm.
I don't know. Um,
Well, it's not so much the veterans, man. What it is the citizens of that country. I mean, Crown was telling me that when he immigrated here with his family from Germany, it wasn't soldiers or veterans who were came against him. It was the citizens
sure.
of the country, and this is the same thing that's been going on since 9/11, where if you're from a Middle Eastern country, um, pretty much everybody going down the line was going to look at you and call you some kind of derogatory name um, related to that region, and everybody was Osama bin Laden back then.
Right. So these things people really, especially when I think of this damn screen to cooperate so I could read. Um, tell you what, I'm probably Mr. Technology, the last guy that should be running that thing. These things. Trying to see what you said there. Well, I mean, I don't know that I see it, especially when they say where are, well, yeah, well, exactly. Read it all because I'll get in trouble. The UN, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for us to even imagine 300 million people on adults in the United
Mm-hmm.
States. It's hard to imagine the number of people that are in Chicago or New York. I mean, really, in our heads,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different. Our worlds are about as big as we think. When we're interacting with things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so much bigger than that, just in the United States. But I think you could probably come up my street and not, like I said, he had 50 people that were enemies at the end of my road street down here. They would probably get past 90% of the houses, without a problem, because everyone's not. Number one, everyone's not even aware, like I wasn't so much 2 years ago, or even thinking that because they're all wrapped up in their lives.
Right.
And then there's a lot of people that maybe aren't even against like the Second Amendment, but don't necessarily, you
Mm-hmm.
know, have that, you know.
Well, I think the other thing that's going on is that everybody thinks that this nation, this country is so big, the United States, and size-wise, in terms of expanse, it does have a lot of space. Um, but there's a lot of unoccupied territory, and you can actually theoretically fit every citizen of the United States shoulder to shoulder, and they would all fit into the state of Florida.
Right.
Everybody in the United States.
I think half of them are here. No,
It might be. It might be. This country is not as big as we think. And I think it was even you were showing me a video that was made years ago about a spinning globe that had a spot of land on there that is not there anymore, or globe today.
Right.
Well, I think the same thing goes for the nation itself. Uh, and all the states. When you look on the map and you see the shape of the state and how big it is and so on and so forth, you look at the size of Alaska, the size of Texas, the size of Rhode Island, Delaware, New Jersey, and Florida. There's if they're all as small or large as they say they are, um, then we couldn't possibly have the population numbers that they claim.
Well, there's that too. You can't ever believe anything you hear half the time from anybody anyway. I mean, so we already know what the census numbers are. But I do know. I always thought that it was weird when they say, "Oh well, the Earth is overpopulated." I think they said like in 2008 or something, or maybe even sooner, maybe the 80s. I don't know. Sometimes they said it was too. But yet, I was like, if I can walk out, like when I lived in Ohio, not in this damn neighborhood, but we lived out in the country by the Amish and there the horse. But I mean, dude, there were 11 houses on my whole road, and like 8 were Amish, so it wasn't an over. When I can walk out my back door on a 5-acre tract that butted up against other tracts and go deer hunting and sit out there and not see another person, then I felt like this. You can still walk away from everybody and be alone. This place is not that big, and like you said, that's not including the thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of acres are out in like New Mexico, Colorado, and stuff. That
Man,
not even inhabit. Not that they produce anything as far as food and stuff that we would need, but there are mass expanses. I don't know. I just always thought that China wasn't ever going to be a threat because they own us, and they're so deeply invested. The last thing that they want is for our economy to fail because then that everyone. And I also didn't know that when it came off the gold standard that the whole world's dollar or their whatever their currency was then based off the value of our dollar. And I heard that yesterday. And then when they basically, I think it was it Nixon when somebody sent France sent their battle battalion over here to collect their gold, and he said, "We're not paying it." They defaulted on it, the whole thing, and then that's when we completely left the gold standard. Well, now we're just floating out here with everybody else's currency basing themselves off the value of our currency, but we have absolutely nothing of value behind our currency.
No, not at all. I can remember when I was a kid going to D.C. on a field trip and going to the Department of Treasury and watching them then printing off sheets of money nonstop. And they do that every day. They're still printing out money and circulating it. And when they have tractor trailer loads that they're having to take to an incinerator and burn every day.
Yeah. The currency, like again, the currency system is so difficult to understand. Really, it is when they went to like the Federal Reserve. It's a promissory note. It's not even a value.
Right.
And there are scholars or people very smart that know what all of that means. And you're not tied to this. You're really not tied to that. You're not saying, we don't know, man. We just know we take the dirty linen out of our pocket and we hand it over and you get gas or cigarettes or bread or beer. I mean, they don't understand the whole system. And I wonder now, I do remember, I thought it was the U.S. Treasury that was printing all those giant sheets of bills. And I wonder, do they even have to produce that very much anymore? Because very few people have cash. And the banks don't even keep like a lot of cash.
No, not a lot.
It's so weird, man. But again, I think that the clubs together would be very strong. Again, it all comes down to the organization. I think that in some cases, but a lot of chapters and clubs, you're so far apart, and there's only 5, 8 on average, 8, 10, 12 usually in a chapter. I don't know what your chapters were like, but
yeah, it's about the same.
I mean, if we got up to about around 20, I would split another chapter because everything took too long. The meetings took too long. It just got above a dozen. It's got too big. To keep track of. But I know that like I said, some clubs get along and then they don't get along, and they'll have alliances and they won't have alliances. There were clubs that were listed on the internet that were mortal enemies to us that were not mortal enemies to us. They were our friends and allies now, but that was 25 years ago. So they don't update that shit. People just don't know.
That's right.
Then you have a lot of people that are, in clubs, but they're not really, they don't live the life. They're not.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about writing clubs. I'm talking about even 1%. Who participate, but yet don't live like that 1%. It's so hard, if not impossible. And it's not impossible, probably, but it's not. I know a couple of guys who were 1%ers in clubs that lived the 1% life. I mean, very rare. Didn't have a job and traveled from here to there and there to here, and that's rare.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, everything costs so damn much anyway. Did you get the gas to get there?
Oh yeah, it's not cheap. It's not a cheap lifestyle, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know. Interesting times, that's for sure. But I just think that if I would be looking at, if you have the ability. I don't know about COC. I never participated in it. I just never really understood it. I never really participated in meetings. I was always on the outside doing like church duties and stuff. That back then, at that time when we were even associated with them. Now down here at Denver, there was a COC, and I was invited by our club multiple times, and I just wasn't about it because I don't get it. Because you all get there and you have your meetings about whatever it is you talk about at COC, but then some of these clubs were awarded. So they're not warring there because they realize you're just another person trying to work on whatever that agenda is. But then as soon as they leave, they're more enemies. And I just never understood it. It's like, what makes no sense to me. What are you even working on with a coalition if you're not really a coalition? As soon as you walk out the door, you're enemy. I don't get it. And I think a lot of it, and there'll probably be some 1%ers that disagree with me totally because they just don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you, they don't know. Just because they wear that, we know how many people we know that have bought that patch and put it on and have absolutely no business wearing it. The furthest thing from what we know is a 1%.
Oh yeah.
But they wear it, so you respect the history and lineage of that club and that patch, but they don't know what the hell they're doing. And in fact, I know for a fact on some that if they did know, they wouldn't be wearing it because it comes with an extremely much bigger price than that they know. They're not playing games. People lose their lives. But I said if you could get an actual coalition together, then you might have something. It gets down to where you have to rely on each other's survivability. It would take something like that,
Yeah.
But I don't know how well you would hold off because no one's really got the funds or if they do, they're not spending it on stockpiling stuff. But let's look at the systematic. How you couldn't even get ammo for hunting or target shooting. Up until a few years, even now it's expensive as hell. But they flat stopped. I think it was around COVID. They stopped producing. You couldn't get brass. You couldn't get powder.
Well, you couldn't even get ammo from Russia.
Yeah, I mean, and so that may be a part of the bigger plan that reduces the amount of. That just seems ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, like I said, like I was talking to Gary James, and he said, we really need to get integral people, and it does start at the local level all the way up. But how are you going to? Because I feel like you couldn't even get elected if you didn't have the until something changes where you the PAC funds. He was explaining how they work, and that's supposed to be the separation of the campaign versus the candidate. But yet, then they just have their parent, mom and dad, or the president, vice president, Mike, and they, and especially in Florida, it was I think it was judiciary. He said something like judiciary and insurance is the ones who are just packing these politicians full of PAC money. And then guess what? They owe them. So then they pass bills that put raise the rates and put the burden back on the insured. And until you can put in a true reform, then you're never going to change. And how are you going to get those people to vote? And he also told me that, like I said, in all fairness, that the position pays $33,000 a year.
What? Yeah, that's crazy.
How the hell can you be a state representative and get paid $33,000 a year and go to Tallahassee back and forth and live, even just live? I don't know. Makes no sense. Time to win the lottery and buy. Well, actually, they even said the lottery. Like nobody's winning that. It's like,
oh no, it's stacking up now.
I haven't heard anybody. I don't play it, but I mean,
it'd be nice to win, man.
Dude, I think I won like $75. I played a $10 ticket when I was 21.
Yeah.
And I won back then in Ohio. It paid like $75 for 3 numbers. That was before all the Powerball crap and all that. I think on one $10 ticket, I won $275, $150. That's the last time I won more than $1, and that was in 1989.
Oh wow!
I don't have that. I was watching a guy who bought $1,000 worth of scratch offs on one of these videos. And I guess he does this sometimes with his wife. And last time they lost 600 on that 1,000, and this time they lost, I think, I don't know, 320 on that 1,000. So even $1,000 in scratch offs, he still lost money.
Oh wow!
I don't know, man.
Well, I did read on that, that 1440 news, whatever, some old lady that she had cancer, and she had just gone through chemo and radiation and came up in remission, cancer free. She hit the Mega Millions.
Oh wow! Really?
After she came through that, and that's good timing to get rid of the cancer and get millions.
Oh yeah. I've known a few people that have won. I knew through a friend up in Ohio who hit a pretty big Ohio lottery, multiple million. And they say a lot of those folks end up broke. I mean,
I've heard that, yeah.
And it wouldn't be that hard to do. Because amazingly, now you think even if you netted, I know all the taxes involved and whatever, the fees, if you took the lump, and you end up with $1 million. It's like it ain't as much as you think. I mean, honestly, they must all these gated communities and houses that start at 300,000 or 400,000. All these people buy, which I don't know. I've been working my whole life and made pretty damn good money in my career, but yet I've never felt comfortable enough to buy one. And Jen makes good income, so combined, I make $1 million. I like to be a millionaire. We make $1 million every 5 years. And do I look like a millionaire? No. I got thinking about half the 401k wiped out back in 08. But and that's why I say I think that people are just tired of working so hard, and then it's just like depending on what changes are made up there, is every 8 years we're up, you're down, you're down, you're up. I don't know how anybody. I guess it's on blind faith, or they make that much to go buy a vacation home or to go buy this, and because you can't count on it anymore.
That's right.
It used to be, and that's again one of the reasons we're trying to, as hard as we can, be self-sufficient, so we're not relying on other companies. Like I've gotten 2 severance packages due to corporate downside. Corporate changes basically means they can hire somebody younger than me. And at my age now, ain't nobody gonna hire me.
Yeah, you're getting kind of old, man.
I'm telling you. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that would be the case, but I think it is. I don't know, man. It's rough, that's for sure. It's rough on a lot of people. I was actually very surprised to see Michael Moore had posted a video. I thought he pretty much hated everything Republican or everything conservative. He wrote I sent it to you. I don't know if you saw it. Yeah. I mean, he shocked with that. He said after he had met Trump, and he goes and he wrote that letter to him. So I've never seen a man like this. They all hate him because they're status quo. He's not, and he was supporting him, which really blew my mind. But what a mess! This is definitely a mess. I hope that, like I said, that he gets somehow it's all been fixed. I just don't know how. And people that eyes are open, they see all of this now. They have a heart. They're struggling. This one lady was like, I don't know. Now that my eyes are open, I know it's fine. I have a really hard time have a shitty attitude going to work and stuff, knowing what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And you almost like ignorance is bliss. I'd rather not known and just been stupidly ignorant.
Well, it's very disheartening, man, when you can look back over the last 50 years and realize that pretty much everything that you were taught in school were all lies.
Yeah, I mean,
you've been indoctrinated into a system fed to you by others who wanted to control you.
Yeah, I mean, but not knowing that was more blissful than knowing it.
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, it is a great awakening because I think there were people that would have been away, but they were always ridiculed and pushed aside as conspiracy theory. Like Randy Quaid and even the one boy was talking about Hollywood way back in the day. Feldman, Corey Feldman, or the other Corey Hart, Corey Feldman, one of those. Haim or whichever, yeah. And he was trying to sound the alarm years ago about and what do you think that like people like Wizard of Oz, what's her name?
Yeah. You talking about Julia Garland?
Yeah. And I saw later interviews with the little red-haired Shirley Temple as an adult and about the things that they went through. Now, some of that to me would have been read as disciplinary. If they got out of hand, then they would lock them in a stack, a speaker stack. They had two, but one of them had a block of ice in it. They put them in there to cool out because they're now look. We had some pretty parents with straps and some shit back in the day that we may not have done partially. That's what they were. I assume that's what they were brought up. But then you really, now that you know what really happened to a lot of the child actors, that's the one. They came out to get Drew Barrymore being one stuff. I don't know, man. It's definitely been a strange trip because there's a lot of shit that happened in our lifetime. Just like didn't happen in for 1,000 years. People just went about their I'm a farmer and I plant in a field and whatever, and in their villages and shit, and all this is just tremendous difference in awakening for this particular generation. It's just really weird, dude. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see. A lot of people like there's so many different. I was not surprised, but still shocked that it happened. I mean, with somebody, I mean, it's so obvious that you would have thought that the audacity of going ahead and going through with it anyway. Everyone's looking and waiting and expecting it, and then they deliver. But again, it's a catch-22 because what do we do as adults? We don't overreact. We don't riot. We don't burn stuff down. We don't gather and whatever riot, whatever. So we basically don't do anything. So then they feel like, but they're trying to trigger. So if you do something, well, then now we can call out. They can blame them. Then you play right into their hand. But if you don't do anything, they just continue to keep on going. That's a very tricky psychological situation.
Oh yeah.
You can't react, but if you don't react, they're going to continue to do it. But if you do react, then you play right in their hand. Pretty soon, you just have to react. So, that it just like take care of business.
You go off the chain, man.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to start with the states, in my opinion. And something else that drives me nuts, and it does, is when it comes to the kids and the things that happen. And it's the 1st of July, and it's been on my mind about Bohemian, ever since I heard about it last year. I never knew anything about it, right? Then I did a lot of research. I know a lot about it, and then I just saw a clip come out on one of these things this week about the ceremony, and people come to. But my mind was like, when is this thing? Hey, let's not just bitch about what's going on here. You have to at some point get off the damn social media and take stand in defense of somebody or something. Stand for something. Again, trying to keep within all legal bounds. But if that just happened again, because this is a new clip of that thing, I looked up, not through Google by the way, but looked up when is that gathering? When
Oh
does
yeah.
Bohemian go? It's in the 1st of July. Well, that must be where that clip just came from. So don't tell me they just did that shit again, because we should have had 1,000 pickup trucks with rednecks up there in Northern California
Oh
destroying
yeah.
that town,
Yeah.
because the local PD are obviously bought, or they're either afraid or they're bought
Mm-hmm.
and paid for, so they do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's always that much of a chance that it's not just a fallacy. It is what it is, but nothing really happens other than people acting like, they want to act like a frat house, I guess, or something.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's truly what they say had happened, then we should not be allowing that to happen.
No, not at all, unless the entities um, are all part of it.
But entities.
The local government, yeah.
Well, they are. They have to be, because they know everyone in that town seems to know, because I've seen other investigative reporters go to that town. It's Oak, I think it's Oak, something, California,
Mm-hmm.
Oak Hill or something. I don't know. But anyway, and I've seen them go and try to ask citizens, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, I can't." They're all either afraid to say something, or people that would go there and then they call the police out, and or whoever runs them off, and they
Mm-hmm.
actually guard for. Do they just not know, or they don't believe, or they don't never investigate? Because how that one, who's that guy? It's always Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Alex
I mean,
Jones.
he infiltrated like in 1980s with camcorders that were this big, trying to hide them. The secret
Mm-hmm.
cameras. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they ever saw anything actually happen, right? Specifically when it comes to kids. But I know that a couple of these people have snuck in there and filmed. They found some huts that had basically locks on like cage doors, and poison stuff. Let me find out once.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we just on the err on the side of caution, we should have about 3,000 pickup trucks up there, rednecks,
Yeah.
with things hanging in the rear view mirror, or in the rear window like we used to in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, and that really disturbs me. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Oh
and so much misinformation, but I don't know. I mean, again, there's another lady who supposedly was raised by a family that
yeah.
was
Mm-hmm.
in a cult like that, and they did a lot of the sacrifice. But she's telling her story, and I'm like, well, that's great and everything. You're bringing awareness and all, and she had to deal with this as a child growing up and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then mentally come to terms, because obviously it made her pretty twisted. But I'm like, well, then you got to name people, you got to name the organizations and the people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it goes great for you to vent, but if this is still going on, then we need to be able to know who they are to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we do, then another kids are going to go through this.
Mm-hmm.
It's beyond. It's seriously beyond comprehension. You would
Oh
hope that
yeah.
it wasn't true, but unfortunately, I'm afraid. I feel like it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just don't get it. Like you said, that we can't really fathom the real number of people that are here, or
Mm-hmm.
even the size of the planet. I mean, but they did just something. I saw something today acknowledging something about being the southern borders open, bringing over kids and handing them over to cartels that were brought them up there anyway. And there have been people
Mm-hmm.
screaming about it for 2 years. Now all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, look, we discovered that these people they don't belong with these kids." Now they've been telling for 2 years. I mean, every day that happens
Mm-hmm.
is unacceptable. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We need Batman. We need a one. We need Bruce, whatever his name is. I almost said Bruce Jenner. Bruce Wayne. We need one billionaire who's on the good side, aside from Trump, I guess, because he's a little busy getting shot at and shit. But they fund an organized um, resistance against that sort of thing.
I mean, did you check out that shot though, man? In his ear. I mean, the kid was definitely going for a headshot,
Oh no, they said if he hadn't, and you see that at the end.
man. Yeah.
It's fact amazing that photograph, they can see the bullet, um, behind him as
Yeah.
it had passed through, and you see him tilt his head. He does a lot of that.
I mean, well, whack.
I mean, his head tilt. He does a lot of that stuff where he'll just go like this, and that one little thing caught. Because they said it would have hit behind the ear, which would have been not the greatest shot, but would have done enough damage. It would have went from here all the way through.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that close. And the thing is, I think it's somewhat irresponsible for him not to acknowledge how dangerous, if he really truly wants to be there for American people, to get out of the open. stop standing out there where you're putting yourself at risk. And I see that in the club life. To tie it back, because we have leaders going into places because they want to lead. And look, I've done everything from a probate all the way up to leader, and I had a hard time too going on missions allegedly. I'm the first one up the bike, and I'm the first one out front. Because you're leading. Look, you're not George or the general customer. Get the hell back. You let your people do their job. So in his case, I mean, staying in a bubble, they wouldn't have to be defiant and I'm not going to let you beat me. Well, it does no good. You can be right and you can be dead. I say that all the time. So you don't want to put yourself at risk to the point where you can't do your job, which is more important. You have to realize the value of the position that you're filling. It's not even the person, the position. And you don't want them cutting the head off the snake, because then we're all screwed. I don't know what they'd have done if he went down. I mean, they'd be scrambling both sides would be scrambling for some bullshit election at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Off people that we have no idea, who. I don't think they still know on that side who's running. How many months are we from the daggone election?
It's getting ready to be August 1st here in a minute.
Yeah, so August, September, October,
4
months. Yeah, I mean, they haven't even. I'm kind of at a loss on whether Biden's actually still running or he's not. They haven't said he isn't, but then they haven't said he's going to step down, and then
I think they have to definitely make decision within like a week and a half.
Well, when's the Democratic National thing? I mean, Republicans this week, isn't it? Like tonight, and through this week.
Yeah.
It's just what a weird. I mean, for them not to have their shit together yet on that side over there, it's either A, they feel like they already know the outcome, and it's all good funny. But even every other time, they've all been way up on political ads, and you don't see them running Biden ads. And they haven't said that he's not going to, but then that they would back Kamala. But I mean, there would be people who would just vote for him, and that's the difference between minds. I could never understand how anybody would say that the country was in better shape or is today than it was 4 years ago, no matter who you back. And I'm not a diehard either side of the thing. I think it's sad that we have to. The system is so rigged that we have to pick between the lesser of the two that we wouldn't like. And I feel like both sides are owned. So I'm not a Republican or Democrat I like to hold on to the rights that we have, and I think that we've been given those rights. We were born into them. I never agreed to these rights. I never agreed that I was going to participate in their citizenship. I was just born here. I'm a North American, not necessarily a U.S. American or citizen. They made me that. Nobody asked me if I was going to participate in this shit, But you're kind of stuck where you're born and where you're at. But if we have those rights, then by God, you have to stick to them, But this is, it's so far out of control. It's like I said. Unfortunately, I see a lot of younger people leave, expat and then going to other countries because they're just sick of it. And then really, this is the last republic standing. It is literally was standing in between. I would mostly, world takeover, but I think that Putin also he will probably disappear before long because he also has just stood up and said we're no longer participating in your monetary career, and we have our own. And then most people that do that. The countries that do that don't last. That might be what this whole escalation of the war is against them. Most likely is. Just like World War II, just like everything else. It's all about driven because he said he's not going to participate. Just like Saddam, not participating in your monetary central bank system. Next you know, they use their countries that are against them. And that's exactly what the fuck's going on here, man. And I didn't agree to send $61 million to Ukraine and use our weapons and missiles to go over there. How the hell do we stop it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think hopefully Trump can stop it if he gets in there.
We'll see, man.
I don't know who the hell's going to be behind him because right now DeSantis was my number 2, but I just found out the insurance industry who basically or his PAC has bought him like $30 million jets so he can fly around the country so he can start politicking to be president in 8 or 4 more years from now. And now I kind of lost it. I should never have faith in the first place, dude. I already know they own both sides, the whole system. But there's no hope there for us. I mean, there isn't. I don't know. All right, buddy, let's call it. I think we've lost the interest of everybody except for the Gen X grand dude up there. So, but at least gives me some fodder for the podcast. But also that Republican thing started. So a lot of people tune into that tonight.
Probably, yeah.
All right. We will see you later, and I'll be back on later in the week. Till then, keep it real. In the club life, you get one shot to prove.